Hello, welcome to the CV3 Manhattan meeting of the Transportation, Public Safety, Sanitation, and Environment Committee, July 12th, 2022. So the meeting is called to order, and I think we're going to start with an update from Katie Loeb.
Hello, everyone. Do you want to do the roll call first?
We should do the roll call first.
Yes.
So go ahead, Wendy. I think you're going to take the roll call. Thank you.
Yes. David Crean.
Here.
Michelle Cooper-Smith.
Here.
Wendy Lee here. Lee Berman.
Here.
Tariq Darrell.
Here.
Kenyel Hernandez. Kenyel Hernandez. And Joshua Waterman.
Here.
And July Yang.
She's on.
I see her. Yeah. July, can you hear me?
You're muted, July. You're muted. Oh, maybe call her at the end.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the minutes of last month's meeting was essentially our vote sheet. Can we, were there any changes required for that? And they're approved. All right, so now, before we go on to the agenda items, I will let Katie give her update.
Hello, thank you, everyone. I'm Katie Loeb from Councilmember Rivera's office here. We have been working with the community board and Susan and Assemblymember Epstein's office on a response to the bus lanes on Avenues A and D. They're undergoing a, there's going to be a permanent bus lane on these streets. And so we are requesting that for Avenue D, the bus lane is for rush hour times and that there's no metered parking. So we're writing a letter, and we also know that the commissioner of DOT is aware of this issue. And so we're hoping a really prompt response to address the concerns that we've had.
If I can just add on to it, the community board gave input to the letter, but since it's not something we voted on, you know, I didn't ask to have a sign or anything. But one of the big problems we found, which will be addressed again later in this meeting, is that there was not notification to the residents that they came out and saw that all of a sudden there was no parking, but there was not proper notification and outreach.
All right, so we'll move on to agenda items now.
Thank you, Katie.
Yes, thank you. All right, there are three items that are gonna, there's going to be people here really for all of them, I believe. Let's do the street co-naming application if the applicant is present, if there's someone who represents.
Yes.
There is.
Yeah, her name is Sky. We need to give her permission to talk.
Okay, so committee members, we have some guidelines that we're going to discuss. When we discuss, we should bring up the guidelines, review what it is that we our criterion that we have said that we apply, and we will decide whether we believe this fits or not. So is Sky ready? You made a speaker.
Hi.
Hello,
Yep.
Sky. Why don't you explain your request?
Hi, yes, I'm Sky. This is my husband,
Hi,
Mitchell. We have a little presentation that helps explain our request for co-naming Rivington Street between Essex and Ludlow after my husband's grandfather, Morris Cohen, who is a lifelong Lower East Side resident. Let me just, am I able to share my screen?
We have to make you co-host, I guess. I don't know. Michelle, can you make her co-host? I
did.
said you to do it.
You should be able to share your screen.
Oh, great, thank you. Yep, there we go. All right. There we go. Can everyone see my screen all right?
Yes.
All right. I want to start off by thank you for having us. Like I said, we've petitioned and are presenting to co-name Rivington Street between Essex and Ludlow, Morris Moishe Cohen Way. Morris was born on the Lower East Side in 1917 to Greek Jewish immigrant parents. He was the second of 7 siblings and the first in his family to be born and raised in the US entirely. As was really common at the time, there wasn't enough housing to put the whole family into one apartment on the Lower East Side. So his whole family was split up throughout different buildings. Morris ended up spending most of his childhood at 108 Rivington Street under the supervision of his grandmother, Big Nunna. Morris fought in World War II under General MacArthur. He was known at war as he was at home for just being always in a good mood. You know, the guy who always lightens any situation that he's in. There's one crazy story about him saving Thanksgiving by stealing General MacArthur's turkey because only the generals were allowed to have turkey and all the other guys had their typical rations. Morris also met his wife, Joan, while he was in Australia at a Passover Seder. They married in Australia, and then he went right back to war. After the war completed, he returned to the US. He was able to bring Joan over, and they immediately started living on Rivington Street again. When he was back from the war, living back on Rivington Street, he wasted no time immersing himself back into the community. He threw himself fully into our family business, which is still there on Rivington Street. He was that guy that like everyone in the neighborhood went to. He was always on the corner, offering advice, encouraging people. He was a shoulder to cry on. He was someone to celebrate with. He was there for people's low moments and there for people's high moments. When he passed away in 2015 at 97, there was this huge, it sprung up out of nowhere overnight. Just flowers and notes and letters and teddy bears at 108 Rivington, just in his honor and to memorialize him. We spent quite a big deal of time petitioning our neighbors, residents, businesses on the block and in the neighborhood to endorse this petition. It wasn't really difficult to get people to sign on, as I'm sure you can imagine. So many people in our neighborhood still have incredibly fond memories of Morris, of him encouraging them to propose to their now wife of 50 years, of him encouraging them to start a small business, to join the police force. There's just so many memories that were shared with us during this process that just really reinforced to us that this is a deserved honor.
People are coming in every day to see Sky and I, finding us to see what they can do, and they're really excited about this potentially happening and how they can be a part of it. It's been great support, and to hear all these stories about my grandfather. I know stories from him and from my parents, but to really hear it from all these different people that knew him when they were kids, and now bringing their grandkids around and telling these stories, it's been amazing.
Yeah, one really amazing story was that he was the unofficial mayor of Rivington Street, that it was rude to visit the neighborhood and not say hello to him, not check up on him, check out what he's doing and stuff. Yeah, so pivoting back to the actual petition and not just the awesome stories we heard while we were getting signatures. There are fewer than 200 units on the block. So we got way more than the 150 signatures from the adjacent surrounding blocks. We also got signatures from 57 neighborhood businesses, including all 9 of the occupied commercial spaces on the affected block. Our council member, Christopher Marte, lives in the neighborhood, also signed on. We have his support, as well as the support of the 7th Precinct and Yam. I believe she sent you a letter earlier today voicing her support as well. He wasn't just my husband's grandfather. He wasn't just my grandfather-in-law. He was everybody's grandfather. He was the neighborhood's grandfather. He was the man. So yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for your consideration.
Any questions you might have for
Yeah.
us or anything we can let you know about the process, anything like that?
Hey, so committee members, are there, I do want to bring up oh my goodness, where they're our street cleaning guidelines. I'm actually going to, I think if I put a link here that Susan perhaps or Michelle can pick it up and share their screen. We need to,
Michelle, are you doing that?
will one of you two be able to?
What do you want me to share?
I just put the link.
I think David's asking for the guidelines that are on the website under guidelines.
Yeah, no, I know we're there.
I put a link in our chat. Maybe
Oh.
you can't see that, or it went to Susan. Is there something I could do to share it more broadly to
Yeah, okay.
Michelle?
I have it, but it's multiple pages. I mean, can we just
Well,
put
then
it in the chat for everyone to look at?
It's at the top. It's it's basically the first section of the.
Yes, just the first.
So anyway, this applicant clearly has met the the petition requirement, which we have, so that there's a known broad base of support. If you can increase the font size, maybe the top few paragraphs, there you go, the bullet points. So these are our criteria. They are guidelines. It would really be the first big bullet point. We should just convince ourselves that that the application meets that requirement. Accomplishment during lifetime. An individual who had demonstrated an extraordinary and consistent long-term commitment to benefit the community. An individual's accomplishments would not be considered if done in connection with the operation of a commercial enterprise. An individual must have been deceased for at least 2 years. So, I'm looking for a window where I can see. So does anyone on the committee want to discuss? I see Josh's hand is up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Cohen, for your presentation tonight. I wanted to bring your attention to a sentence in that paragraph David just read. The individual's accomplishments would not be considered if done in connection with the operation of a commercial enterprise. Obviously, your grandfather was connected with the store. I think I heard you say that you still maybe operate the store. Obviously, it's still in business. I guess, can you just speak to that point of his community involvement removed from the business?
His love for the Lower East Side was not hinged upon our family's business. The Lower East Side, being the melting pot that it is, clearly shaped him into be somebody who, at a time when there was still segregation, there were still warring factions between different communities, made him want to unite everybody. And he was the most
Yeah,
open
I
and
mean, he
welcoming.
grew up on the Lower East Side. It just happened to be that, as crazy would have it, that the business happened to be on the block that he grew up on after all was said and done. And, it's not directly related to the commercial enterprise, but, providing advice. He was out on the corner of what he would go in every morning, take out all the product that would be outside, and then he would just be out there on that post, where we want to put the sign in the corner of Rivington and Essex, right where he stood every day, 100 hours a week, every day, 7 days a week, to rain or shine. And that's where people came to talk to him for advice, to guidance on careers. And he was close with the precincts, and as an outpost for them also to make sure know what's going on in the neighborhood. It was more of he was on that corner to lend advice, lend an ear. It wasn't, we're not harping on the commercial enterprise, just that's happened to be why he was there, but that's not why he had an impact on the community.
Thank you.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Osiris from El Castillo de Agua. I'm directly in front of Economy Candy. We've been there for 35 years. And to answer this question, what Economy Candy has done for the community, that's immensely important. They've always hired teenagers to work in Economy Candy that I've seen throughout. I've been there for 25 years, and these kids during the 90s, the 2000s, when the Lower East Side was really bad. They took these kids in. Sometimes they didn't even need them. If you would, Mitch would know. Jerry and his grandfather would hire these kids to help out in the store, take them off the streets, keeping them safe. And I think that was the most valuable thing that they did for the community.
Eddie or Edie?
Edie, you're on mute.
Still on mute. Edie, you were able to unmute, or? I'm not seeing a way for us to unmute you. All right.
Okay, I clicked ask to unmute. Maybe that'll help.
It's usually in the lower left corner of the window. There's a little picture of a microphone. If you're unfamiliar with Zoom. All right, Edie, we're going to go on to July. July, do you want to speak? July, by the way, is a new committee member, everybody.
Thank you, David. Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for calling on my name, David. And to the Cohens, thank you for your presentation. I find it very endearing. The block actually is, less than 2 blocks away from where I live. So I have, 2 questions going back to the guideline. Since I'm a new member, I just want to find out for my own benefit, and perhaps some other members may also would like to know if they don't already. So the guideline, the first question is, it looks like this is a guideline that our board has, determined on our own. I guess that's through experience, through, many applications in the past. Is that correct?
It's
true. Oh, I'll speak to it, Susan. It is true. There are guidelines for us, so we can set forth criteria. And so when we come to a meeting, we have, an idea of how we are evaluated. They're not binding on us. We just need to convince ourselves that we are, that the application fills the guidelines. You can say that we would consider them, for the following reasons. And so we just need to weigh against what we have told applicants that we will weigh against. All applicants see this. And, you know, so it does prevent trivial applications from coming before us. That's one thing that it does. But it's an attempt to create, you know, some sort of consistency.
Yeah, I was thinking that word as well, David, consistency, just so we're not, you know, reviewing the applications arbitrarily from, you know, with variations from one to the other. Thank you. And the second question is, if the application is approved, is there a, you know, is it granted for a period of time, a number of years, or is it just indefinite?
The process is that the city council is the body that actually does the co-naming. And so if we were to approve this, or actually whatever resolution we pass, we would send it along to that local city council person's office, and that's Marte, almost positive it is. City council, if they were to pass it, it would be a permanent co-naming. And it's a co-naming, not a renaming. So it's an honorary sign that hangs beneath one of the street signs on that lot. Is that clear?
Thank you very much. Very helpful, David.
Susan, you wanted to speak?
I was just going to add, there are also city council guidelines. And when these were made up, it was ensured that they didn't contradict any of those.
Good to know. Thank you, Susan.
So Edie, are you able to unmute? If you want to speak and can unmute.
I'm so sorry. Can you hear me?
Oh, I hear you. Slava, sure.
Oh, that's my husband. Sorry. I've been a neighbor of Economy Candy for 20 years. I have the business at 104, and I'd like to speak in favor of the co-naming of the street sign for a few reasons. One is that one thing that hasn't been spoken about is the traditional Jewish heritage of the Lower East Side. I'm Jewish. A lot of my family was from the Lower East Side, and the Cohens are from the Lower East Side. And I think it is representative of the heritage of the Lower East Side. And also something that El Castillo mentioned, which is that they have always employed people of the community in their shop. And that's very important. A lot of us businesses get employees from other places, other neighborhoods, but Economy Candy has always employed people that lived in Lower East Side, which is very special to them.
Thank you. I'm going to point out again that in no way are we going to be co-naming for the business, and nothing about the business should influence whether we pass this guideline or not. Strictly, we should be evaluating whether Moishe Cohen is someone who we feel had a significant contribution to this community, because the individual demonstrated an extraordinary and consistent long-term commitment to benefit the community. Other speakers, Nanette would like to speak.
Thank you. I also just wanted to weigh in favor of this decision. My husband and I have had an art gallery on the Lower East Side for the last 25 years, but I grew up with Economy Candy as part of my life. My grandmother, probably for the last 80 years, she went shopping from Queens to Economy Candy in the city, so her cabinets could be full of treats for all of her grandchildren and her children. I was just speaking with my 89-year-old mother, who recalled exactly what the containers looked like in that cabinet, and just what wonderful experiences we had going to the candy store. Now that I have a business in that area, I never have clients that come in that I don't direct there for equally as wonderful an experience. I frequent the store, and it's just a generational establishment that should be recognized in that way. It's part of the Lower East Side. My grandparents also came to the Lower East Side from Europe, and initially came to Stanton Street. And just ironically, our business is on the Bowery. I mean, it's just part of our New York City history, and it should be commended. So I'm very much in favor of it.
Lee?
This is for the grandchildren. Could you explain how Moishe, as mayor of Rivington Street, was able to help out the youth over the decades of the Lower East Side? Could you go into a little bit of that?
Absolutely, and I actually have my hand raised because I wanted to speak on that a little bit, since it keeps coming up that he did employ neighborhood youth, and that's just the tool that he had available to him, I think, to support the neighborhood and to keep kids off the street. It was what he could do. He could give them a job and put them to work and give them a little spending money so that they put it back into the neighborhood instead of the allure of drug dealing or gangs or any of that. Give kids a little bit of a brighter future. And the way he could do that was by hiring them, whether or not, we needed another employee at the business, just a way to help the community.
And that's not something Economy Candy did. That's something my grandfather did. There's a lot of stories of, people who used to come by and after school as kids and, he'd look the other way when they would take something. He would help out when he knew kids couldn't afford that penny candy and couldn't, get by. And then they come back and tell stories how they would then later rely on him for advice. And, eventually a lot of these guys that used to steal from him when he looked the other way are now cops and are the people who look out for us, and it's great to hear these stories. And like we said, people coming back that they went to ask advice about getting, it's all these people and these hundreds of signatures we've gotten. It's all stories about him, not Economy Candy. It's about what he meant to the community and what he did for the Lower East Side.
And how many generations would you say that your grandfather helped out of kids and the community here on the Lower East Side specifically?
Up to 4 generations. We have people coming back that bring their grandkids and say, like, this is where my first job was, or this is where I first used to grow up shopping with my families, and and having a place to go. And it's the stories that we've been hearing and what he's done. It's even things that I didn't know about, and which is crazy because my family likes to talk a lot. You thought you would have heard all the stories by now, but it's pretty amazing. And to keep having people come back to see us, to be like, what can we do? When can we do it? I want to be a part of this, because he was such an important person in their lives. And again, not the store, it was my grandfather.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask the committee members if we can go around. I guess, like Wendy, if you could sort of do a roll call so that people can just speak one at a time, because I'm not going to be able to pick it off from this participant list. And just committee members, share your thought in a brief sentence about whether you support this or not, and then we can move on this.
Did I have you go last?
Yeah, please.
Michelle?
You don't need to speak, but if you would like to, share your thought. Just to get a little debate going. And then we'll be done with it. She's not unmuting. We're not speaking.
Okay. I don't know. I think it's a great idea because then he does seem like a very influential person. I've personally never been into that section, unfortunately, although I really wish I have. And he sounds like an amazing person, really supportive of his whole community, his whole block. And then I think it really does say something that 4 generations of families have been constantly coming back to this place, and referencing him in particular as someone who was very influential, not just influential, but very impactful to his community. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it from me. And then Lee Berman.
Sure. Having known over the last, 4+ decades, a handful of people who sound like this, who have been an influence to their part of the community over generations. From what I'm hearing from his family, it certainly sounds like a worthy goal. So I'd be in support.
Tariq?
I
in support of the co-naming. I do know many youth that have had job opportunities there. And I've also been to many nonprofit fundraisers that Economy Candy sponsored candy at, and have enjoyed the candy there. And I love Economy Candy. So that's all I have to say on this.
Kenyelle? I don't see her name. Joshua?
Yeah, I'm conflicted. In reading the guidance. I feel like we've gotten some background. A number of people spoke to the store. Obviously, it's not the store. I'm a little concerned about it being setting some sort of precedent as far as advertising, marketing for the store, just because of the inextricable entanglement. But it sounds obviously like he made significant impact to the neighborhood, but I think that going against the guidance that this board set could present problems. So I'm curious what the rest of the committee thinks on that.
July? And David Crane?
Yes, I am on board. I'm sorry, I am trying to assist Michelle in bringing up something. Go ahead, Lee.
Or just Joshua, to your point, if I would tend to agree if this was going to be Economy Candy Way, but it's not. And honestly, I didn't know of their grandfather's name before tonight, and I don't know that anybody really would connect Moishe, I'm sorry, I forget the last name, Way or Street to Economy Candy. So it is inextricably woven together, and I think that's a great thing. But for Economy Candy being there, he may not have been as active, or maybe it would have shifted down a block or two. But it sounds like we're so lucky to have had him on Rivington Street for so long.
It's a good point. Thank you, Lee.
Hey, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring up the draft resolution, and
I can send it as a Word doc, David, because I don't think it'll be super helpful to have it as a PDF, but
I agree.
I can send it to Wendy.
Okay, thank you. So Wendy, you're going to be getting an email shortly, which is going to be a Word document.
Okay.
And then so anyway, it was helpfully provided by the applicant. And in the meantime, it looks like Nanette maybe want to speak again. You can keep it brief, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I'm just having trouble taking down the hand.
Okay, sounds good. And it's Gabriella, although that wasn't your name. Also,
no, it's Castillo de Jagua.
Castillo, yeah.
Joshua's concern of the entanglement between the business and the name. I mean, Mitch and his wife Sky should, they really don't have to be on Rivington. They nowadays they can go online with Economy Candy and it's not even, they don't even have to be on Rivington anymore. It's not about the business. It's really about what his grandfather built and how he used Economy Candy as a tool to help the community. It's not about the business at all, I think, for them.
So thank you. I'm sorry, I could have prepared this sooner. I assumed if I had links that I would be doing sufficient. That is not true.
Got the link. I've got the Word document. Should I bring it up?
Yes, if you could, and if we can get Wendy's screen shared. Okay, so the applicant has supplied a motion that I'm just going to move now. And we get it on the screen, we'll read through it, see if there's anything we need to change. I will say,
I think Michelle has to make her co-host.
Yep, got it.
There you
so
go.
I read through it and it, it captures everything was here tonight and it, very well worded. So in the interest of not spending 20 minutes reading all the words aloud, there are a couple of whereases that collapse thank you together. So this is the, first, quite a few of them were the biographical background. Keep going. Yeah.
Can I suggest one change?
Right.
David?
Yep.
In the last paragraph, it just should say Manhattan Community Board and not Transportation Committee.
Correct. So cut out the word Transportation Committee, and let's also cut out the word further under the be it further resolved, because it's just a single resolve clause. Okay, now the whole thing doesn't speak at all about employing teenagers, which was the one compelling thing that was mentioned about, about a contribution to the community. The rest of it's all about being famous and popular on the block. Do we want to word that in here?
David, it does say it.
Okay.
It says economy candy. He was admired for offering jobs to neighborhood kids and providing a safe haven for
It's
all.
there. Okay. Thank you. I had just been skimming it quickly and I was like, oh, that part's not there, but it is. Okay. Is there anything that people think needs to be changed? I will just say, as handing this up to City Council, that this will work for sure. If there are no additional changes, we shall go to a vote. Ready for a vote? Here we go. Michelle, Wendy?
David Crane,
Yes.
Michelle Cooper-Smith,
Same.
Wendy Lee. Yes, I lost my attendance. Lee Berman,
Yes.
Tariq,
Yes.
Kenya Hernandez, Joshua Waterman,
Yes.
Angela Yang.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, great, thanks. So the next one, we probably should do the one where DOT has a rep here for, I'm pretty sure, for the Doyers Street Plaza. Pretty sure we have someone. Okay, we held it over for last month, if everyone recalls, because there was a request to hold it over because of a survey that was in the works. So I'll let DOT speak now.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for having me tonight. Nice to be back at CB3. It's been a while. My name's Kyle. I'm from the city's Department of Transportation. I manage our Open Streets program. Tonight, I'm here to sort of do a recap of what was discussed, of course, in June when my colleague Emily presented, and then I'll talk a little bit about the survey that David had mentioned. If I could have screen share privileges, please, and a short presentation. Thank you. Okay, so really the sort of prefacing statement that I just want to make is that, sorry, I can't get rid of this blurb, is that, this presentation and this Plaza proposal really comes on the heels of many years of outreach and engagement that we've been doing on Doyer Street through our seasonal streets program, through our weekend walks program, and now over the last 2 years, the pandemic, our open streets program. So we've really been able, I think, to do a lot of outreach and engagement, like I mentioned, just about the future and what folks want to see on this particular block. So I'll first touch on all of that and then go through the engagement that we've done, as well as the Plaza proposal items. So in 2017 to 2019, we were doing a seasonal street, which was sort of the precursor program to open streets, where the street was closed on a seasonal time of day closure basis. This was the first time something like that was done on sort of this scale on Doyers Street, and we saw a 111% increase in pedestrian activity. Many or most of the businesses on Doyers Street noted that they saw an increase in foot traffic, which ideally, was translating to sales. So we saw a lot of success with seasonal streets. As I'm sure all of you are now well aware, the public realm has dramatically sort of changed in the pandemic as we, gave people more space for social distancing, as well as helping a lot of struggling small businesses. Open streets was definitely a part of the recovery agenda here in New York City to provide, support for economic relief and recovery. That sort of all being said, open streets continues to be also a tool for economic development, and making use of the public realm for business is definitely important, but it also, of course, has to be balanced with the need for just more open public space that doesn't necessarily have a commercial layer to it, that provides different types of programming, access to resources, and so on and so forth. Here's another photo of the open street being executed on Doyers Street. Like I was just mentioning, we also want to make sure that Doyers Street and many of our open streets remain as public amenities that are not necessarily just for economic uses. We were able to partner with the Chinatown Bid to bring the Bidnell-Stiff Family Circus to the open street last December. The circus has actually been back to Chinatown recently on Forsyth Street, and potentially maybe it'll be back again in the future. And there's all different types of programming that we bring to the table to activate our open streets in really vibrant ways. Like I said at the beginning of the deck, we've been doing a lot of engagement about open streets here at CB3, with the businesses on Doyers Street, with the members of the public, with elected officials, so on and so forth. And really through those conversations and all that outreach that we've been able to do has really galvanized support for a long-term pedestrianization or pedestrian priority really on this really narrow historic street. There's been a series of intercept surveys, merchant surveys that folks have done throughout the years, including the one that I'm going to talk about that we most recently did over the last few weeks. And time again, we've really heard strong support for a permanent pedestrianization scheme for Doyers Street. This is presented at the previous community board presentation, but just shows that we have very strong business support. We were able to go door to door with the Business Improvement District on Doyers Street, talking to all the businesses about what they thought about the permanent plaza proposal for Doyers Street and the open street as well. And of course, also making sure that we have the relevant information to know more about when they receive deliveries, when their trash is getting picked up, and sort of other operational details to really make sure that this proposal reflects the need to sort of just do business as usual activities. So this is the results of the pedestrian intercept survey that we had mentioned that we were going to be releasing at the previous community board presentation in June. We heard from 278 individuals. It was promoted the survey was an online form that was promoted through social media, signage on the street that was multilingual, email blasts, and as well as I think through folks here at the community board. We heard from really local folks who are visiting the street on a pretty regular basis, everything from every day of the week to several times a week and several times a month. So these are people who know the street best, who are going there to, whether that be visit a business, own a business, maybe they live there. There was a lot of different connections that folks had to this particular open street. We asked folks pretty directly what sort of outcome they would like to see, and we overwhelmingly heard that people wanted to see the street closed all year long, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so 365 days, essentially creating it into a pedestrian plaza. There were some other suggestions of how it could be executed through time of day closures, which we've essentially been doing over the last 5 years now. And then 11% of respondents did not want to see any sorts of closure, whether that be permanent, seasonally, on a time of day basis, what have you, at all. So that was the result of the survey. 66% of also folks who took the survey said that they would like to see more parts of Chinatown car free. So definitely opportunity to continue to sort of build a lot more space for pedestrians in Chinatown. This was also presented last time. Just to recap, the Plaza proposal would fully close the street with different types of materials that are within the DOT toolkit. We also want to add various types of traffic calming and safety benefits at the Bowery, Doyers Division intersection and East Broadway. So shortening that crossing distance with the high visibility crosswalk. Like I was mentioning earlier, we want to make sure that business as usual activities can continue. So we were looking to add more metered parking for commercial loading, pickups, drop-offs along Bowery, as well as a new loading zone on the northern section, right north of Doyers Street. So that is the Plaza proposal. These are the materials that we would use: umbrellas, movable furniture, granite blocks, flexible delineators, epoxy gravel, all materials that you all, as residents of this community, have definitely seen before in your travels around the city. This is all our standard Plaza toolkit that would be managed in coordination with the Business Improvement District, as well as other city agencies and so on. There are still some operational items that we're working out with the businesses, whether that be the trash pickup, and that also would include trash pickup for residential buildings as well. There's a number of new initiatives that the city, of course, is working on to help out with trash mitigation. So super excited to see what we can implement on that front. I already talked about some of the dedicated loading and delivery spaces we're looking to add on Bowery. And then, of course, also addressing some more unique access needs. We heard from one of the businesses on the block has a special pump that needs to come into the block to pump the oil out of their greaser, which is more in the basement. So we need to coordinate that. Of course, we want to make sure that the post office can operate without issue. And then, of course, as comes with many public spaces, just making sure that regular sanitation and horticultural care is given. So just the last slide here, the next steps, we are now in official receipt of the Plaza program application from the Chinatown bid. We'll finish up the final review and continue through that process, which is set forth through previous legislation to make the Plaza program permanent here in the city, continue to work out some of those operational features with our local stakeholders on the block and beyond, and then look to implement sometime in fall 2022. We don't have a firm start date on implementation, but given the size and scale of the block, it would be relatively quick. So that is the entire presentation. I will stop sharing my screen, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. So I'm gonna first ask the committee if you have like clarifying questions. Let's hold comments and debate until we can hear from the public. So first round of committee. Are there clarifying questions? Michelle?
Thanks, David. Kyle, I'll ask my question that I've been asking to everyone, and you mentioned this about trash, but are you considering doing containerized commercial trash as well, like the Clean Curbs program, working with DSNY on that?
Yeah, that was one of the sort of more new initiatives that we were looking to see if we could partner with the BID and DSNY on. So yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other committee members? Carlin, I see you have your hand up. If it's something like a clarifying question, go ahead and go now. Otherwise, hold on for a second. Okay, so I'm going to take then, and I think I'm seeing the order in which hands were raised. So COMA, I believe that's like an association. You want to speak?
That's an organization based on 21 Pell Street, which is right around the corner. I think what is neglected in a 24-hour lockup is that, at night it becomes like Hell Square Chinatown version, where the 3 discos are running 4 o'clock in the morning, people throwing up, having the closing that street for 24 hours is going to create another hell square in Chinatown. It's bad enough already. But once you start closing it permanently, motorbikes come in, motorbike groups line up the whole street. People do all kinds of stuff, shooting music videos all hours of the night. Are you telling me that you're going to make this permanent? That this hell square in Chinatown is going to be permanent?
Thank you. Carlin. Are you muted?
Yeah, no, I unmuted.
Right.
Okay, good. I just want to follow up on my question from last month. How is policing of this pedestrian plaza going to be implemented? What percentages allow for commercial use? Because we're still in the open restaurants phase of the recovery of this pandemic. And to personally, I see this open restaurant as a total disaster where tables, the pictures that you showed, the 3 pictures you showed about the open streets, the seasonal seating, it doesn't reflect what is actually happening on the block right now, where 3 restaurants have monopolized the entire roadway. There is no room for pedestrians to walk, except for on those 3-foot wide sidewalks along Doyers Street. I mean, closing Doyers Street, to me, it's up to the community. It's up to what the people say. But the way it's going to be rolled out, it really concerns me. You're going to have the restaurants putting out their seating. They're going to, if the DOT or the city actually provides seating, umbrellas or whatever, they're going to be commandeered by these restaurants for private use. So it's a thing with me. It's taking public property and turning it over for private commercial use. It's a serious concern there. I know this plan is going to go forward because you already have the votes, you already have your data collected, but you should address these. The applying entity, the Chinatown BID. We can never trust the mouse to look over the cheese, to guard the cheese here. All right. Look what happened to open restaurants program. So I would like to see the DOT take some kind of ownership over the enforcement aspect of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say that we definitely agree. We want to balance the need to support our small businesses with the fact that at the end of the day, the street is our most valuable public space and should have amenities that are free from any sort of economic or commercial use. So we obviously have to continue to deal with the temporary outdoor dining program that exists now, which is evolving. We don't need to get into it. But in the future, we definitely want to make sure that everything that you're talking about is not a prevalent issue, because it was, even through the seasonal street, something that, presented itself. So we want to make sure that moving forward, the public benefit is the primary use, and then the economic sort of development side of things is there, but doesn't become the primary use of the street.
Oh yeah, Susan.
I'm going to make comments based on what both Carlin and the other gentleman said. I get the complaints. And some of them are serious, and open streets that are actual pedestrian ways, I think, are enjoyed by everyone. The ones, and I don't know if this would happen there or not, but the ones like on Broome Street and Canal Street that have become taken over in the evening by bars are just impossible. They've made living situations impossible. And I really think DOT has to find a plan to not allow, before they open it, a plan to not allow that to happen.
Carlin?
Yes, just a quick follow-up to Kyle. Well, if the DOT takes some kind of ownership over the policing of this open plaza, can you just provide us a number or an email where we can send complaints to?
Sorry, I want to be clear. DOT is not taking over the policing of anything. We have our enforcement powers over certain types of things. But I don't want you to think that DOT has some sort of police power here. You know, DOT has the ability to execute certain types of items related to outdoor dining and certain types of elements that are within our pedestrian plazas. But activity, especially criminal activity, is up to the NYPD to manage. I just want to make sure that
I'm not talking
that's
about
clear.
criminal activity.
I'm not talking related to what you just said, Susan. Sorry. I was talking to Carla.
Michelle.
Thanks, David. I just want to say that I know for a fact that at least Chinese Tuxedo is not allowed to use outdoor space. They actually came in front of the SLA committee recently, and that was one of the stipulations that they agreed to. So, and I mean, I haven't checked all the stipulations, but I have a feeling that like Apothecary and Pulcheria also are not allowed to use their outdoor space. And if they are, then they should come to us to ask for it. So I think that the other restaurants are probably open, not as late as those ones on this, you know, on the part that's closer to Bowery. So just wanted to flag that.
Okay, Coma again, and then Greg.
All right, well, that's the problem. At night, you know, when the lines get long and the velvet rope comes out and the street fills up with drunks and, you know, the bridge and tunnel crowd, the motorbike gangs, the vomit, the madness that goes on to 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Tell me who's policing our community and not turn it into a Hell Square, Ludlow Street, because that's what it's becoming at night.
Okay, Susan.
So I'm gonna speak to the stipulations, which we have and we absolutely should have. However, these are not stipulations with the city. The city allows the business to use it. And until we can find a plan where there's somebody, whether the SLA or somebody, because right now we do not have enforcement, and the businesses that are responsible, you know, abide by the stipulations, but the ones that are problems, and I haven't dealt with this kind of problem since maybe 9:30 this morning, so it's a continual problem. You know, I'm sure that most of the businesses on Broome Canal also have the stipulations. The city needs to create a plan to not have post 10 p.m. Activity that's gonna have a negative impact on the people living there.
Yeah, if I'm going to speak for a moment here. I wish that these two issues could be separated. You know, I love the public plaza program, and I don't like the open restaurants program or the way that they're run. Right? There is a situation. I don't go to that part of my neighborhood late at night. But when I do go there, it is difficult to walk because the seating, it's full of restaurant seating. And you have to be on the very tiny sidewalks. I brought my family, some of my relatives were visiting recently, and I brought them to my favorite part of Chinatown, which happens to be the blocks right around that intersection of Doyers and Pell. And I mean, it was cute and they liked it, but it was, I mean, even by New York standards, it was crowded. Anyway, you have talked about, DOT has talked about basically making this a permanent program, which would be an amenity, and it certainly will after the open restaurants are tamed. I don't know that it's gonna make it worse because I mean, that's a situation that is just there. Anyway, I do share this concern and I'm struggling. Okay. Carlin, I want other committee members to start speaking up. I want to wrap it back to committee members, but I'm going to let Carlin and Coma speak real quick.
Okay, this will take less than a minute. Kyle, by enforcement, I meant will the DLT come up with a plan, what percentages or how many tables that each business can put out? This way we have some kind of guideline. Someone like me can go and speak to the restaurant. If they violate that, let's say you allow three tables, 20 people outside, and they put 80. At least I have something that's in black and white where I can go address this with the business owner. This is what I was saying. I don't mean sending the SWAT team down or anything. Okay, just want to clarify that. Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Yes, I mean, our plan as a part of the permanent outdoor dining program, and just to be clear, the permanent outdoor dining program would be a layer to sidewalk seating, to seating in the parking lane, as well as outdoor seating on open streets. We would have the ability to sort of dictate, all the things that you just asked, and of course have the full enforcement powers and all that. I don't need to tell this board at all about the sort of timeline that we're on with outdoor dining, but the lawsuit that we're sort of dealing with now is slowing things down. So once those details are worked out, that will then be sort of a layer to factor in how to do outdoor dining and enforcement and everything else.
All right, Coma, you want to speak again?
I mean, that's all well and said, but when nighttime comes, on the weekends, like you said, the bars, they don't put people out, but they, the lines go around the block. And people come out, they don't go home, they stay there drinking and making and noise like you won't believe, fights. You want to make this 24-hour, it becomes a destination point, like Hell Square in Ludlow. It's just, you're just going to repeat the same mistake that you did in Ludlow, right in the heart of Chinatown. And you make it permanent. You know how many times I called 311, the 5th precinct, and how many times they sent anybody? Are you serious?
Okay, let me bring this back to the committee. Actually, before we do that, let me clarify, do we need to pass a resolution, or would it be helpful if we passed it? Susan, do you know about this?
I thought they came back to us tonight so that for the
Okay.
purpose of us passing the resolution.
So we really do need to pass a resolution tonight. So committee members, please raise your hand. Let's enter some debate on this. July, thank you.
Thank you, David. So I don't remember what the street was being used before the Plaza concept, before the closure. What do we think, if we didn't support it, if this did not go through, what would be happening on the street? So that would be my number one question. And two is, doesn't DOT require like a fire truck safety lane for any emergencies? Can we, incorporate that into this program, make it a minimum of 6 or 9 feet of, open path?
So yeah, I mean, as a part of all of our projects, open streets, plazas, what have you, emergency access is always clearly coordinated as a part of the project development. So yes, there will be an emergency access plan.
So Kyle, who enforces that? I assume the DOT enforces that.
The DOT would enforce that particular item. I mean, we will place the elements on the streets. We can work out a plan. I'll be perfectly frank. There are very limited tools that we have right now in the outdoor dining program. But we're lucky that we have the Business Improvement District that has a good working relationship with the businesses who are all on board with this Plaza proposal. And I think a lot of the clear path, whether that be for emergencies or for just general pedestrian traffic, can be maintained. And that can sort of just be a, an unsaid or sort of an agreement that I think you all can include as a part of the resolution, as a stipulation, if you'd like. And we can work with the restaurants to make sure that there is a clear path for pedestrians down the center of the street as a plaza, part of the plaza proposal with their outdoor dining sort of seating currently. We will place elements strategically to close the street at Bowery and Pell, such as planters, granite blocks, and flexible delineators, and those are approved by the fire department and everyone else.
So I just clarify, July, there would not be a dedicated lane for emergency vehicle access. It would be movable things, which has been done in many other places.
Right. And also, sorry to interrupt, David. It is incredibly difficult for a fire truck to actually fit onto this street because of how narrow it is. They can definitely do it, but they're not necessarily always going to be doing that. But emergency access, as I said, is always sort of coordinated as a part of these projects.
It is, I would describe it as like a medieval street,
right?
A medieval corridor with very small and curved. And so what was there previously before they were doing open plazas, which has been it's kind of a time of year closure for years now. Before that, it was for cars, and it wasn't really used for cars. I mean, I didn't see cars, and I would bike. That's my route to bike into Chinatown because there would not be cars on it typically. Now, as for if we were to not approve it, that would mean there would not be a permanent street plaza created, presumably if DOT were to follow our recommendation. However, that wouldn't do anything about the open restaurant situation, and it certainly wouldn't do anything about lines that are happening outside of businesses. I think that those are separate from creating a permanent closure. Maybe someone on the committee, could think of a way that they actually are going to be connected. And I've spoken enough. I'm going to go to Michelle, and then other committee members. Michelle.
David, I just want to start out by saying that I'm fully in favor of this. I mean, obviously, as you said, Doyers Street is almost like a medieval street. It was built way before the advent of cars. And David, you mentioned that you had no space to walk but on the sidewalks, but if there were cars going down the street, that would also be the place you'd have to walk. So, I mean, isn't it nicer to not have cars whizzing past you as you're walking on this tiny, windy, angled road? So, I mean, I understand the concerns about the late night lines, but I don't think that that's really connected to the closure. As you said, David, if that is a problem, they're breaking their liquor license stipulations almost certainly if they're having lines outside, and that should be reported to the SLA, and you should make complaints to Susan about that.
Oh, come on. Sorry.
Okay, done. Thanks.
Sorry.
Bye.
I'm sorry.
Wendy.
I'm for the plaza as well, but then I really do understand where Coma was coming from, because even though there is a lot of businesses like on the first floor of Doyer Street, there is also a lot of residents who are living in those little buildings, like right on top of those restaurants too. So then if it does become, like I imagine the noise right now is already a nightmare for them. So I want there to be something that can help protect like the residents' like safety and like peace of mind at night.
Okay, Josh.
So firstly, I'm in support of this. Thank you, Kyle, for your presentation. Thank you to your colleague last week for the very thorough 2 presentations now, or last month rather. It just sounds like there's a conflation of different things that people have taken issue with the businesses that are out there, like Michelle said, in violation of the stipulations of their licenses. What we might be voting on tonight doesn't seem to affect that. That'll either be happening with cars running through or not. I think we should support this. This is something, just in general in the district, this is probably one of the better blocks to eliminate vehicle traffic. I mean, if you just pull up a map, there are major thoroughways on either side. This is the perfect street for pedestrians. There are historic businesses there. It seems to make a lot of sense. And the issues that people are vocalizing against it aren't really against it. They're against, they seem to be against another issue, which is not the one at hand here.
Susan,
So the issues, this is a planning issue, and they are 100% in effect practically every day. This is what I deal with in the office. If you create a situation that generally generates a negative, what we have now, like on Broome and Canal, they are related because you're creating a situation for it. I was not suggesting that the committee not support the plan. What I was suggesting is that there has to be a plan in place to make sure it doesn't become a problem after 10. I complain to people all the time that I am no longer able to do my job because agencies at the best, are not enforcing. For instance, DOT is often not allowed to give summonses now unless they get permission from the mayor's office. So let's be real about what is going to be enforced. As far as the permanent restaurant program, we don't know if that will exist. If the decision that an EIS is necessary, the city may not continue going along. So that may or may not happen, and it may or may not be in a few years. We are, and don't call. If you close this and it becomes a problem, please don't tell people to call me, because what am I going to say? The community board, voted to do this. If you want to get the SLA to hire 50 more inspectors so that they can come down and deal with it, that would also be good. But what I am saying is that what's going to happen, therefore there has to be a plan in place. Not saying not support it, there has to be a plan in place to protect it after 10 so that it doesn't become a problem.
sure. It does seem to me that it already has become a problem, and it is another instance of oversaturation of licenses created by the State Liquor Authority. I really don't know. I mean, I didn't hear you explain how having the closure, which is there today, made permanent, is going to change that one way or another. I agree that there's just no enforcement, and I agree that there's no plan for that. But I don't know how asking for a plan to come before this. I really don't think they're separate, Susan.
Pardon?
Okay. I really feel they're separate. Kyle, can you help?
Like I said, I'll be the first one to say, like, we definitely were thinking we would be in a very different place with the permanent outdoor dining program now versus where we're at. But as a part of that program, which is well under development, we'll have all of the things that I think people want us to have with the full enforcement and, setting rules and stipulations and all the things that make sense to have. And I will just say also, Susan, I would argue against the point that you made about enforcement in the temporary program. There are a number of businesses all across New York City that have received the cease and desist from us on a daily basis. So, I will say, versus what happened in the last administration versus where we are now, there definitely is a lot more enforcement that we're seeing across the board. And I'll even go further by saying that, Susan, you remember this correctly, or you probably remember this, is when we had the issues on Avenue B between 2nd and 3rd Street, we were very quick to remove the designation of the open street on that block because of the emergency access, as well as some of the quality of life issues that you brought to us. So I want to make sure that everyone knows that at the end of the day, we still have the power to sort of enforce on things that, do pose issues, and that will remain the same with our plazas, with the future outdoor dining program, and so on.
So I'm sorry, David, I just have to respond. You did fix Avenue B. It wasn't immediate. It took a very long time, a tremendous amount of work, and I leaked papers from the fire department that showed what her problem was. the cease and desist letters, you do send them out daily. People are papering their walls with them because nothing will happen unless the mayor gives permission for a summons. But let's not go into all that. It exists. We all know it exists. What I don't want to happen is what's happening on some of the open streets, not all over, but on Canal and Broome, where there are tables and chairs out there till 4 a.m. because the hours right now are 4 a.m. And
The open streets end at midnight there. They don't go out till 4 a.m.
no, well, we're told people can serve till 4 a.m. So the DOT needs to, you need to talk to each other because we're told it's 4 a.m.
No,
this
there's
is
the
part of a
open. Are you
resolution.
talking about the open street? The open street on Canal Street and at midnight. There's no 4 a.m. I'm not talking about general outdoor dining. I'm not commenting on that. I'm talking about the street being closed.
But this one's not going
And also, I want to sort of bring us back. We cannot, unfortunately, conflate an entirely separate thing with the Plaza program. You know, on paper, they're very separate and very different. And I understand that there are definitely challenges and room for improvement, but we cannot complete these two issues as one and the same.
Let me ask you, this is going to be open 24 hours, so therefore people will be able to serve till 4 a.m.
No one will be the open street will become a plaza, similar like we have on Division Street at the Delancey Plaza. Like it's
What will
just
the rules be? When will people have to stop serving?
for outdoor dining, you mean, or
Yeah.
just general?
No, at this location.
At this location, I don't think anyone does outdoor dining beyond 9 or 10 o'clock right now. It's
So
up to
will
the
that be
individual
the
restaurant.
rule? Will that be the rule, 10 o'clock?
Should you want to offer a stipulation that says that we look to cut off outdoor dining at 10 p.m. for this block, we can definitely take them into consideration. I want to reiterate again, and I know that this is not the answer that anyone wants to hear tonight, but we are kind of, between a rock and a hard place because of the lawsuit that is slowing down the permanent outdoor dining program. And there's answers to questions that I just will not be able to have until that process plays out.
Okay, so when talking about a plan, I think 10 p.m. is I would suggest is a good part of a plan and consistent with stipulations the community board always sets.
Lee had raised his hand earlier. Do you want to speak?
No, I'm conflicted and still taking it all in. So no, I haven't made up my mind yet. Thank you.
Yeah, well, if we do pass approval with conditions that we would approve of it if things like this were written into it. I don't know if that's your bid with the Chinatown bid, or if that's
I will say that, we will honor the stipulations to the best of our ability now and forever in the future when the permanent outdoor dining program is included. I want to go back to a point, I can't remember who made it earlier, but I've been working on Doyers Street for many years, and for many years, as we all know, there was a time of day closure where it only got closed during the day, and at night it reopened to traffic. There was same sort of, I don't want to call it a party atmosphere because I personally don't know anything about that, but there were the same complaints that were made about the quality of life issues overnight when the street was completely reopened. So whether we do a plaza here or not, there are certain quality of life challenges that we can work with the NYPD on, but I think the decision related to the plaza is kind of separate.
Lee. Oh yeah, Lee and then Josh.
Yeah, so it's that working with the NYPD issue. We see how that works, whether it's about plazas or whether it's Canal Street, whether it's Broome Street or elsewhere in general. And again, whether it's open restaurants, open streets, open plaza, or just the conditions. And as one of the neighbors brought up, to subject those residents in those 6-story walk-ups to the potential of what is going on in the rest of the overly saturated areas is not something that I would want to foist upon anybody there until we have guarantees that there's specific enforcement actions that could be taken, and that those residents would not have to be subjected to what other parts of our community have to go through and have had to go through for years without a good night's sleep or without proper enforcement. So,
Josh.
I know, Kyle, you mentioned that you don't think the restaurants serve past 9 or 10, right? I have sort of a two-part question. One, right now in the current program, is there what is the time cutoff, if there is one, for businesses to stop serving outside? And then two, would an approval of this plaza impact that? Would that change that time?
So through the context of open streets, so that means the street being closed. And let me also add one other layer to sort of just, complicate things maybe. Technically speaking, the businesses that are on Doyers Street are ineligible for the general open restaurants program. They cannot build the structures that like others have built with like the 3 sides and all the things we've seen. They're only able to offer outdoor dining through the context of open street. That's why the street is fully closed. Through open streets, people can close the street on non-bus streets with not bus routes up to 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to midnight. Through legislation that was passed back in May 2021, it did actually allow us for 24/7 type closures over an extended period of time, maybe a few months, what have you. So realistically, in a lot of cases, Doyers Street doesn't always necessarily even reopen at night. So it's kind of been operating like a plaza as it is right now. So you should assume that there is no outdoor dining that is permitted beyond midnight on Doyers Street. As has been stated, most of the businesses, the restaurants especially on Doyers Street, don't typically offer outdoor dining on Doyers Street beyond 9, 10 o'clock at night. Separately, of course, there's the sort of crowd of people who are just around at night, that's a separate issue that was there well before the open street or the conversations related to the plaza. And that's unfortunately a prevalent issue that we see in a lot of parts of this community that you all have obviously talked about tonight.
Josh, do you have a follow-up, or Susan?
Yes, something you said that those businesses are not eligible for the open restaurants. Is that just due to the nature of the geography of the street, how small it is?
Yeah, there's certain parking regulations and sidewalk widths that allow for outdoor dining. Technically, there's no parking that is permitted on Doyers Street. So that's why they can only have outdoor dining to the context of open street.
Okay, Susan.
So I think Harlan's going to disagree with me on this, but if the bid is managing it, we've worked closely with the bid many, many years. And if there were stipulations to, not having serving after 10, I would trust the bid to ensure that the business is complied.
All right, committee, we have to come to a decision. And if someone wants to make a motion to get it rolling, you can just, say to support or not support. We can start, well, we could actually just ask around the committee which people would prefer to do at this time.
David?
You have something to say?
Yeah, sorry. Was there a proposed resolution sent to us via email, or is it something we need to write?
There is not. We have to write it tonight. This was something that we just couldn't come up with. That wasn't clear what was going to happen. Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
So actually, let's committee members, what can do with a raise of hands. Do you feel that we should support this or not support it. So if you support it first, committee members raise hand and I'll count them here and we'll see what we have, and then we'll start. 1, 2, 3 feel that we should support it. And I'm just going to presume that this is with conditions, you know, like 10 p.m. ending of service outdoors. So if that changed anybody's mind, that would be the kind of resolution. Okay. You take your hands down, and then committee members who do not support it think that we should say that we do not want this to be made into a permanent closure. Committee members who feel that raise their hand.
Whoops, Michelle, looks like Michelle is.
Michelle has dropped off.
She's just coming back now.
Oh, coming back now? Okay. Well, I'm asking at this point if there are people who oppose supporting, you know, who would want us to actually send up a do not create this as a permanent closure. You will notice that I'm one of the chickens who didn't raise my hands either. But I do feel that if we support it and then put in you know, a condition that we do support it only if there is if the rules say that there is no outdoors dining after 10 p.m. All right, let's get started drafting a motion that says that, and then we'll see if that flies. Wendy, do you want to bring up a document? We can start just dictating this.
Like a brand new one, right? We're not going to use the previous one anymore.
If that has facts in it, why don't you bring that up? So this is a resolution that we had a draft from last month. I didn't recall that.
That's the one I received in my email.
Okay, well then good.
No, this is a different one. This is not this one.
Oh, whoops.
Oh, right,
Okay.
right. I don't think that we had one, right, Susan? There wasn't a draft. Right.
Oh, okay.
All right, so that the board members know what we're talking about. I'm certain that this will get discussion at the full board. We need to be explaining that whereas, you know, boy, this is where it gets so hard online. We kind of need to see the presentation doc as well. Because I would like to say, whereas DOT has proposed.
Kyle, do you have the presentation you presented? Are you able to, or is that able to be distributed like in the chat somehow, David, so that we can just kind of look at it on our own computers?
Yeah, that would be helpful. If that could be, certainly if it could be shared with Wendy. And switch back and forth.
Only letting me share something through SharePoint, and I'm not into my work computer. I'm on a local computer, so let me see. Hang on. If someone puts their email in the chat, I can just send it that way quickly.
David, you could also add in the bullet points just from the presentation.
Right. That's what I was thinking
After the
too.
meeting.
If I get emailed the presentation, I can open it up side by side.
But you could also, I mean, you can just do that later. No, that's not a.
Well, it would be useful to have it now. And we can say, we'll just, you know, note bullet points from presentation.
Yeah.
We'll want to describe what they have proposed, a permanent 24/7 closure under the whatever program.
Is this
application?
enough?
Sorry?
Is this enough?
The presentation's on our website, attached to the agenda item.
Can you guys see this part? Is this enough?
I'm seeing DOT has proposed, whereas DOT has proposed is all I'm seeing.
Oh, okay. 1 second.
Anyway, we want to describe what they have proposed. We want to describe probably the history of the closures that have happened, and we want to describe the situation that is there that we want addressed, and then we can go into a resolve.
Does this help?
Yes, it does. That is excellent. It has proposed that Doyers Street be closed.
Could I make a suggestion? Yeah. I would say whereas DOT has proposed a pedestrian plaza On Doyers Street, after receipt of application from the Chinatown Business Improvement District, maybe to start it off like that.
Okay.
From the Chinatown Business Improvement.
Yeah, I would say specifically application instead of proposal.
Oops. Application.
Chinatown, yeah, Business Improvement District.
So because and this would be a 24/7 closure. Is that what it would be? Oh,
A pedestrian plaza is a permanent designation of a block. So yes, it is not reopened to traffic. So
Okay, we can state that way. This will be a permanent pedestrian plaza that would not be opened to vehicular traffic.
except for emergency vehicles.
Right, except for emergency vehicles. I don't know if we need to mention, you have to come something for sanitation.
You could say emergency and city service vehicles.
Okay. And then possibly,
Should have had Kyle write it beforehand.
Yes.
right, okay. Okay, then there would be, okay, now what do we got for bullet points? These are other things that would be going along with it, so we can have that as a separate whereas. Is there a next page of the presentation?
That's the only one I
Oh,
captured
that was
because
the one that was in the agenda.
no, it's the only one that I captured because I thought it might be good to just keep.
Yeah,
I can still email it if you drop your email. In the
On our website, right?
Yeah, the one from last month is basically the exact same that I presented tonight, except for that new slide about the survey that we did.
Yeah, I think you had sent me an updated one that I put on the website.
Jackie, do you know if you sent, did you receive it from Jackie today? Because
Not today. I got one that I was told was updated, but it was a while ago. I think it was before Jennifer left.
Right, so the one today, I just finished this afternoon, so but it only reflects the survey data.
Okay.
okay, so this second whereas, anyway, I would like it to be about the history of the past few years, or something like 5 years of, there was I believe that you had that pretty tightly laid out.
Yeah,
Anyway, it gives context that.
Yeah, I would say from 2017 to 2019, DOT implemented a seasonal street on Doyers Street, as well as an open street since May 2020.
Well, there's no-
And a seasonal street was a time of day closure. Okay, so after on Doyers Street, the first clause, 2 sentences here, which created a time of day closure and programming. Yeah, that's good. And then and the period, and then another sentence would be since May 2020, Doyers Street has been, and I'm actually not sure right now, it is 24-hour as today?
Effectively. Yeah.
Okay. So since May 2020, Doyers Street has been closed under the Open Streets program, which is a 24-hour closure. Okay. I think that's probably enough context for that. Now, another whereas where we do want to capture the considerations, and you have those in bullet point form. You maybe cut and paste them over, and then we'll tighten them up. And some we may reject, but I saw you took some notes here on in your minutes about concerns that were being brought up.
I think the biggest one mentioned was the
really
space being
want-
monopolized by just a few restaurants, and then restaurants taking advantage of like public.
Right. Well, I mean, this is part of the open. This is part of the
Yeah.
open streets setup that they get to, but it's really definitely concern for noise and late night activity.
Mhm.
Yeah. So And it's really coming from the customers of establishments. I think we can probably leave off biker gangs, try to phrase it differently anyway. Concerns, whereas residents raised concerns about noise and raised concerns about existing noise and late night.
About noise and late night activities.
Existing conditions that create noise and late night activity. There's extraneous words there. You're good. About noise and late night activity stemming from well, it's businesses operating. You know, here I don't know. The businesses. It's partly coming from being outdoor dining, and it's partly coming from what happens when you have so many liquor licenses created on a small space. And what we want to do is to try to address that by having, you know, in the resolve clause, we want to address that by having 10 p.m. restriction on outdoor dining. I believe that's what we want to ask for. So are we stating enough about the need here? I would from either business stemming from, it's dining and nightlife establishments, licensed establishments.
Dining.
I fear that I am making a mess of this.
Either dining
Michelle or
or
Susan, I suspect, might have good input here about specifically what do we need to say this problem is. Dining or nightlife establishments. Operating on the block, you know, I suppose, yeah, just to be precise. Yeah. There's also the sheer number. There really are a lot of seats. It is actually literally impossible to walk up the middle. And by the way, there were never cars on the street, so you could always walk up the middle of the street previously. But when there was one, it was a surprise. So, you know, enough. Let's flesh out the resolve now, and then we'll see if people have suggestions that they feel we're missing out. Therefore, be it resolved. Now, you were saying stipulations, but I think we can just say that CB3 supports the creation of the permanent pedestrian plaza on Doyers Street, as long as
there will be restrictions or regulations.
Right. I was thinking as long as DOT creates enforceable restrictions and ensuring that all outdoor dining end by 10 p.m. So yeah, enforceable restrictions, ensuring that all right. What is there other things that we need to add so that it's understandable by us, by the agency, that we're getting what we want out of this? Are there other restrictions we want? Communication is never good between agencies. Is there a whereas that we should add that would help?
I mean, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. Would it make sense to add a whereas about the pretty overwhelming positive response from the community? I mean, the survey results were overwhelmingly favorable, I would say.
Yeah, makes sense. Whereas, right below there, whereas DOT conducted an online survey in which, and we're going to say the support that they got, and it was like 69%, I believe. Although,
What was that number,
verified
Kyle?
number.
It was like
It
64,
was
66.
64 point something, so you can just say 64%.
64% of residents supported the full-time closure.
I would say survey respondents. I don't really say specifically only residents.
Of survey respondents, correct. Yeah, right, we don't, yeah.
Supported
And,
the
the full closure. And then we should add a sentence.
Sorry, the pedestrian plaza, not the full closure. I would say pedestrian plaza.
Okay. And another sentence about the businesses. You said that, what was it about the business?
100% full support.
there's an additional 100%.
100.
No businesses on the block object to the plaza proposal, maybe.
Did they all voice support for it? Or did none of them, did some of them not speak up?
Well, there was an individual, obviously, who's in the meeting now, who spoke against it. I'm not sure what his, if he was on behalf of a business, but maybe Kyle, can you clarify what that,
Yeah.
Are you just saying no one like reached out to you guys in opposition from a business?
So we went door to door with the business improvement district, talking to all the businesses, including the new ones, as well as the ones that are under the ground or, in the back of a hallway, what have you. And we did not hear any opposition. And many of them actually wrote a letter of support for the plaza proposal as well.
Thank you.
Well, I don't know how to say there are no objections from that. DOT engaged all of the businesses on the block. I don't know how to say it. Would that be a fair description?
Sure, yeah.
And there were no objections. They report no objections. Okay. Well, more specifically, DOT reported there were no objections. Just like the word allegedly, Yeah. Okay. Are there other things that need to be put in there? Do you think that we have stated, look at the third whereas and then the therefore? Have we stated this strongly enough about why we want and what we want about a 10 p.m. closure? Susan, are you trying to speak?
So, yeah, so just real life, with all the plazas, when there are issues, and they've never been major issues, when there are issues, I do not call DOT, I do not call the police. I deal with the organization managing the plaza, and they're the ones that make it happen. If they need to call DOT, they do, but they generally don't. I don't know if there's Kyle, will there be any security hired or no?
That is not currently part of the plan, no.
Okay, and I'm not saying it should be. What I'm saying as far as enforceable and everything else, that we really deal with the plaza managers, and that has never been a problem.
So it looks like it's going to be Chinatown bid. Should we be phrasing something directed at them?
Maybe include them in it, but that's the way it has been working for several years, and it's not been an issue up till now, so I don't expect it to be. We work very well with them.
And I just want to add one more clarifying point. So the bid, is our community partner for this plaza and will play a role in definitely maintenance, operations, things like that. but it will also likely fall within our One Plaza Equity Program that actually a number of plazas in this community board are supported through already, where DOT helps out with some of these operational and maintenance items too. So just note that we are not making the bid do everything completely. We'll be supporting them with some operational personnel, horticultural care, sanitation care, things like that.
But I will still be dealing through them, probably, unless there's something unusual happens.
Right. For the most part, you can definitely you can always feel free, of course, to reach out to the Manhattan Borough Commissioner's office directly, but the bid is a good place to start as well.
Okay, I want to add at the end here, all outdoor dining ending by 10 p.m., comma, which is consistent with, and if Michelle's on the line, what words would you use for consistent with the restrictions that we put on SLA?
We would say that all outdoor dining must end by 10 p.m. and shall not have TVs or speakers.
In the outdoor areas, is that the point there?
Yeah.
Okay. And I was thinking specifically calling out consistent with the stipulations that CB3 puts on all SLA applicants, something like that. I don't know if it makes it any stronger.
I think it's a good idea because it doesn't look like we're picking on one place.
Yeah, we're just consistent. And so what is the phrase here? With the standard stipulations CB3 uses for all SLA licensed establishments, correct? Uses for all, yeah, SLA licensed establishments. Okay. And then we can just lift bullet points, but we should have let's say the third whereas, so insert one between the second and third, say whereas the Doyers Plaza installation would include the following changes to Doyers Street and adjacent streets, and then bullet point. The very ones that we read right there. Boundary crossing distance, convert 25-meter parking. Okay, so that we're making it clear that we are approving of all parts of what DOT would actually, physically install.
So then later on, I could just copy all of that.
Paste the four, yeah. So it's the four bullets from that slide.
Okay.
Thanks. Committee, is there anything else that we would want to add to this or change in it? Or Kyle, is there something else that came to your mind from the problems that we are afraid of that we could ask for that would help mitigate?
No, I mean, I think that this is good. Yeah.
All right, I'm guardedly optimistic that this actually would create a better situation than is happening there now. I'm actually not terribly optimistic about any of this, regardless, but I think that this is better than nothing and probably better than a denial. Okay? Committee, we all ready to vote? All right, let's take a vote. Wendy, if you want to conduct that, please.
David Crane?
Yes.
Michelle Coopersmith?
Yes.
Wendy Lee, yes. Lee Berman?
Jane?
Tariq Jarrell?
Yes.
Kenya Hernandez? Joshua Waterman?
Yes.
Julie Yang?
Yes,
Sorry, July Yang, I'm so sorry.
that's okay. And yes.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Okay, so we will move on to the next agenda item, which we should be able to do, I think, fairly quickly. we have a draft resolution, but it's the lack of transparency and notification regarding open streets and open restaurants for this summer, 2022. So we talked about it at length last month, and we decided to we put it off so we could have a draft. It's been distributed, and I will ask who has it. Michelle, do you have it to share? Is that the plan? Michelle and I have been working on it, but then Susan also. So
And he has it, you can share it. The whole committee has it.
Yeah, everybody has.
everyone has it.
It was sent around 5:30.
And one of us bring it up. And I'm so sorry that it is almost 8:30 all. You do still have to look at the district needs. But if we can put it up so the public can see what we're talking about.
This one?
Just sort of talk to it. We're focusing on the lack of transparency about the rules, the changing rules, things like that. That is that should be the entire focus of the resolution. We're not actually able to. Okay, thank you. Okay, so whereas, and then its background about the difference between these programs is just hopelessly confusing to anyone who's not sitting in these meetings. But I will include myself in ones that are confused. I'm not a hopeless case though. And yeah, what the programs do, the fact that the changes weren't notified that well. So we're introducing the fact that they're changing the rules, and we're complaining a bit here about or outlining the facts about what notifications did not happen. You scroll down a bit. I think we can read the rest of it to get it on the screen. Okay, there. I think up 3 lines. If you just there you go. The current summer program, they made changes. They didn't notify. Okay, this is what you'd already seen. Anyway, it did not seek community feedback based on lessons from the previous year. So lack of public input and opportunity for public input. Whereas there's not a comprehensive list of all rules and regulations clearly posted on the DOT website. Yeah, nor are they being distributed to applicants of precincts. So this is communication problem, and it, they might keep going. Whereas the open restaurants program, continuing on a temporary basis, has regulations that sometimes change and are sometimes vague, and enforcement that is constantly changing and evolving. But there has not been a set of regulations for this summer season that is comprehensive, addresses problems, and includes community feedback. Similar to before, open restaurant rules change. Some rules change, but there is not adequate notice or education to businesses and notification to community boards or a comprehensive clear list of regulations on the DOT website. That basically summarizes what's all above. Then the important thing, the be it resolved. Community Board 3 calls on the Department of Transportation to be more transparent and better notify all stakeholders in Open Street and Open Restaurant, as well as other initiatives, and include Community Board feedback when creating and writing the guidelines and regulations to avoid, I think that should be recurring problems and lack of clarity.
Yep.
I do that particular mistake all the time. That's why. So, discussion board. This is a proposed motion. So at some point, someone probably wants to move this or something else. Community participants. While the board thinks about it, are there public comments? We don't need extensive, I think, but if you want to speak briefly, if you're from the public. Michelle.
Oh, I just make a motion to bring this resolution to the floor for discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
Excellent.
Thanks.
So public, Coma, would you like to speak, please?
Yes, I would. All these grandiose plans, 50-story jail, homeless shelters, closing our streets. We don't have any input because most of the Chinese in the neighborhood don't attend these community board hearings and can't navigate all these Byzantine government regulations. but it's being done to us. I don't know if you know, but there was a big fire on Valerie Street. The fire truck couldn't get through. I mean, this is a very densely populated area. And you got to be able to have fire trucks go through. I'm sorry. Even as small as it is, we had fire on Doyers Street. They broke down my door. The fire department came with axes and broke my door. Why? Because the restaurant had a fire in the basement somewhere. I'm on the 3rd floor. Now, you don't live here, but you're making decisions that affects our lives every single day. Garbage trucks don't pick up. We get tickets when we put garbage out. You know that? Commercial trucks, you know, they can go through and pick up their garbage, but the regular sanitation doesn't do pickup anymore. You don't live here. We do. And you're making decisions that affects our lives. And I'm savvy enough because I'm retired that I have time to make a complaint to the right people. And you guys supposed to represent us and hear our voice, and not just to the people who want. Of course, the restaurant's going to say yes. Of course, the bars are going to love this designation of a permanent go-to spot in New York.
And let me clarify that we're actually discussing the fact that the rules aren't clear and that they are. We're calling on the DOT to be clearer about the way that they promulgate new rules. It's
like making these rules up as they go along.
Okay, well, that seems to be part of the problem that we are trying to address with this. Thank you, Michelle. Or at least the appearance of it's happening. Michelle? No.
Oh, it was just up from before.
Okay. All right. Committee members, is there any discussion of this motion? Is this everything we had hoped for?
Are you seeing my hand up or no?
No, I am not. Susan, speak.
I just wanted to say these complaints are the same complaints that the businesses have. We're very much on the same side, and the same complaints that the police have, because they're also don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So I think all stakeholders are very much on the same page on this.
July.
Thank you. I just wanted to say this is a very nicely written resolution, and I'm in support of it. Thank you.
If there's no more, oh, Josh.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is great and concise and to the point. I would just, in the therefore be it resolved, it's just a typo. I would just add in the 3rd line, open streets with an S, and then restaurant with an S as well. That's it. I think it's great.
If there's no other discussion, we'll take a vote. Ready? Okay, let's vote. Ready?
David Crane?
Yeah, I'm going to vote last. I really
Okay.
will. Thank you.
Michelle Coopersmith?
Yes.
Wendy Lee? Yes. Lee Berman?
Yes.
Tariq Darrell?
Yes.
Kenya Hernandez? Joshua Waterman?
Yes.
July Yang?
Yes.
And David Crane?
Yes. Okay, now district needs. Okay. Can someone bring that draft up? This was distributed. I think we're definitely going to want to make some changes to it. Now, we want to get it in good shape tonight. Susan, can you speak to the process? Thank you.
Sure, I'll speak to briefly what it is and the timeline. So first, what the document is, and apologies to everyone who's heard it 100 times. This is the first step in our budget process, and we'll be voting on it in October, although we will be finishing it before then. And after the district needs from this comes our budget priorities. We will also be voting on 25 expense and 40 capital priorities. So this document specifically doesn't have funding. That comes later. This is a planning document that describes conditions that give way to unmet needs. And what we're doing is assessing our priority unmet needs and, if possible, a pathway to try and meet those needs. We don't have resolutions to everything. This is for fiscal year 20, I think it's 23. It's for the year starting a year from this July. So the district needs for this current year we're in now have already been set. We are, as difficult as it is, planning for next July. So it's hard thing to remember sometimes, but that's what it is. It's the community board several years ago voted on a specific format, and that is to be as succinct and targeted as possible, as much as possible to be bulleted. The point of that is to have the needs stand out and be memorable and not to be lost. I think one of the problems we have currently is when we put in new things, we tend to be very wordy and then kind of cut down, not the concept, but the number of words. And the last two things, it is not a policy document. We do that, if we do that, more in resolutions, and it should be well documented. It's not anecdotal. We try as much as possible to check statistics. And you will see that we have gone through and updated all statistics from last year as much as possible. And then those statistics will very much inform what our needs are. And what we need to do tonight, I think, is make sure everything is either included, that we want included concepts, or things that to note what should be taken out or what should be maybe wordsmith. We do not need final wording on anything tonight. This will come back in October to the committees and full board. It shouldn't be made any major changes at that point, but we will be voting on it in October. And that also gives us an opportunity in case some emergency happens that will in fact impact this. We'll be able to take that into account at that time. And that's it, unless there's any questions. David, did I leave anything out?
Not really. I will say that although this is the beginning of the budget process, the needs that we state here get picked up by, kind of all levels of government read it. I mean, and that speaks to how, I think how well we've organized it and what we have focused on. So what we need to do is then just go through, and if we'll look heading by heading and talk about stuff that we should be cutting or rephrasing. Like Susan saying, we don't need to have it perfectly wordsmithed here. This isn't a situation where we want to fix the grammar. It is a situation where it's like, wow, we should reorganize that. Or we need to say this thing about a need. Okay, so the first section, accessibility and safety.
Make it larger, maybe? Who's ever doing it?
Yeah, perhaps if you got rid of the sidebars. Okay, great. So you see that there's been several people already working in here. So yeah, off on the side. Anyway, fine. Accessibility and safety, is it good? Sorry, I need to put my participant list where I can see everybody. I see no hands raised for that. Let's scroll down so we can read pedestrian and traffic safety. These are largely, they've been here forever, these sections. So pedestrian and updated the stats. Bowery between East Houston and Delancey has been marked out. Presumably it's no longer.
Because they're already dealing with that. So last year, they actually, DOT took this list and incorporated in their hotspot that they wanted to address, and that one was addressed.
July. Okay. Okay, good. July.
Hi, yeah, I think one important item is missing, which is bicycle enforcement. I'm not sure where that quite fits in. I think it impacts the pedestrian safety the most when bicycles are not going the wrong way or not following traffic lights.
Do you see this as something that, because these technically these the need statement supports budget priority requests. And whenever we have brought up particular kinds of enforcement in budget consultations, we're told that's not a budget item. So I'm not sure that it's suitable to put in something about this. I happen to agree with you. And I'm an avid cyclist, but there is not adequate enforcement specifically about going the wrong way.
I mean, it's something that could be brought up at the committee at another point.
Right. We need to think, if we were to do anything about this, we need to think about what it is we're going to say and to whom and how. Kind of need a moment. Anyway, Lee, you have a comment as well?
Oh, yes, actually, to July's point, wouldn't or couldn't that be funding for educational outreach at DOT or educational programs for bike safety?
This is not a funding document. That comes later.
So, but as a need, that's something that it could support perhaps. That might be true. Education is not going to cut it though. There's not a cyclist on earth who is not aware that they're supposed to go the right way on a one-way street. Michelle?
We should just ban bicycles in the district. That will get their attention.
Well, but then I'd have a hard time getting around. Michelle?
I just wanted to ask, I know I had sent to the office, I know Susan, it's included the last bullet about pedestrian plazas. I'm not sure if this is the right place for that, but I know that just because of the focus on the actual like hot spots, but given that it's pedestrian and traffic safety, I mean, having places where pedestrians can safely walk without being impacted by cars might fit underneath here. And my understanding is that Parks has a pretty significant section about the lack of green space, but open space is also important for folks. So I don't know, David, what you think?
I mean, yeah, I agree. I kind of want to get both of these in here in some sense. I mean, I really, yeah. Can we boil these two down to a sentence?
Can you maybe temporarily just put in the bullet points so that they don't get lost? And
Okay. These wouldn't be bullets, I think, right? These are
just as placeholders.
right. So let's stick in a placeholder above delivering right there above. So one is yeah, put it. Really, cyclist safety is also impacted by the rule breaking. Here's what I do. If I'm driving down the street and there's a cyclist coming toward me and it's a one-way street, I start pointing them into traffic because there's no way in hell I'm going to veer into traffic to save their life.
Can I ask, is Drew still on, right? Drew, do you have any statistics in here about bicycle safety? Or I thought I remembered something about accident. Oh, it's right in here. 175 of these injuries were 2 cyclists. Is there anything about, do you think accidents because of cyclists?
I'm not sure if it has. I can go back and look at these, but I'm not sure if there was. There might be something in there about like exactly the causes for accidents in the district, so I can look at some of those.
Okay.
As well, I can also pull out some of the statistics about pedestrians, maybe, and also talk about those injuries or pull out that statistic to exemplify the need for more pedestrian plazas and walkways and things.
There is enforcement that can be enforced. I have had friends who have been given summonses for wrong way cycling. So DOT has the capability of doing it. It's just that it doesn't get done routinely enough.
It's NYPD.
Yeah, right, it is. So we can say that inadequate enforcement of rules of the road for cyclists by NYPD, this just got really rambly. Pedestrian safety is also threatened by cyclists not following the rules of the road, and NYPD is not is not adequately enforcing.
So I don't know if you could, your criteria for adequately, there's, they are enforcing, the enforcement is not working. I mean, that's the bottom line. And current enforcement is not working or is not addressing the problem.
Right. Word spreads if they start enforcing it. It's one of those things where they'll do, you know, a targeted period of time. Anyway, we can state this somehow that it's you know,
You can leave it like this and we can, you know,
yeah.
work on the wording when, particularly when we get the statistics to back it up.
Okay. And so now,
and just to add, I'm just curious, like maybe the less of a focus on, more of a focus on like how, you know, creating more safe spaces for bikes will create more, you know, compliance with regulations would be a better way to frame it. So it's not so much like we don't like bicyclists, because obviously I would think most people would agree that you'd want more bicyclists, less cars.
Right. That's one thing that might help, but it doesn't always help. I mean, I don't take roads that don't have protected bike lanes. And I'm continually, well, I do sometimes, but it, especially with the COVID checks in the way of the things, you just have to go into traffic quite a bit. But in any case, they still go on the sidewalk and they still go against traffic and they still run the red lights. And I do the latter, but only when it's safe.
And the bike lanes are not enforced.
Yeah, the bike lanes, there's not enforcement keeping cars out of the bike lanes. Deliveries and so forth. I mean, there's a whole constellation of problems here, yes. But go ahead and you can leave that there. That's a good thought, and we'll tighten this up.
Okay, and what was the other thing?
Pedestrian plazas and open space initiatives like pedestrian plazas. There's a need for open space. It doesn't have to be green space. Just having a pedestrian plaza where people can socialize is useful, as well as, you know, in some situations, being able to have a safe route to get from here to there. There are parts of the neighborhood, like the one where I've moved to, where it's actually quite difficult to get between the corner of Grand and Clinton and the corner of Delancey and Essex.
Do you want to call this open space?
Pedestrian plazas, well, it can provide open space is the thing. I just want to state it as the need. You know, the need for open space and safe routes can be satisfied with pedestrian plazas. I mean, I would like to encourage proposals like that by stating that there's a need that can be filled.
Yeah, we should put it that way.
So yeah, there's a need for open space and
there's
safe routes and safe pedestrian routes
to create more safety.
Well, specifically, in the end, I think that we do need pedestrian plazas. We do need less road space dedicated to cars. I mean, that's really about the only place you're going to find.
I was just trying to state as a need. So this is the need, and the pathway is more open space, such as pedestrian plazas and such.
Okay, there's a need for more open space and pedestrian and safe pedestrian routes, for more open space and safe pedestrian routes.
Yes, okay.
Okay, and which can, and that's just stating, at least in the placeholder here, which can be created with programs such as pedestrian plazas. Yeah. Okay, can we move to the next section, or is this is there a thought that's should be captured here? Let's move to the next one. Delivery.
I have my hand up.
You do. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just would say that I highly doubt that there are any statistics to back up that cyclists are dangerous to pedestrians in our district. That is a false it's a conspiracy theory. So I understand that Drew is going to do research on it, but I would vote to strike it no matter what. So thank you.
July? Is your hand still up, or do you newly up or still up? Okay, delivering curbside management looks like the whole section is struck, which,
Well, we did a lot on that. The delivery complaints are much less. We've changed a lot of areas. We've put in the neighborhood loading zones. Amazon, which was a huge problem, has totally changed the way they're, less trucks and more carts. So unless people give us new or present new needs, a lot of that has been dealt with, other than enforcement. I mean, enforcement is always still needed, but that's a different situation. So, comments of people are seeing areas that they think are still have problems. They should note it, and, we'll deal with it.
public transportation, there's,
Oh, I have my hand up, David.
sorry,
I just want to say that maybe in above Houston Street, there have been neighborhood loading zones added, but none below Houston. In fact, when Jen came to report on the new loading zones, I asked her why none of them were below Houston Street on the Lower East Side. There are none here. And so I do not think that we should strike it. Lee and I have presented photos of the trucks parking in the middle of Grand Street, parking on the pedestrian plazas on the Lower East Side. It is not a solved problem here. Canal Street as well is a disaster between Allen and Essex Street. It is not a solved problem on the Lower East Side, that is for sure.
You're
Strike
right.
it.
So I think it should be rewritten to say below Houston, this problem has been addressed above Houston, but not below Houston. Michelle?
That sounds good. Thank you.
And then we should put in specifically, I think, the Essex crossing problems. Is there specific other areas that are really horribly bad besides the Essex crossing area?
I think, like I said, Canal Street between Allen and Essex is just like a constellation of delivery trucks parked in the middle of the street. Grand Street the whole way. Between Essex and, Lee, I don't know how far back it extends.
Are we capturing this?
no, I was about to ask, are we going to undelete that section? And
I would rewrite it. I would leave the heading there and rewrite it.
okay, so underneath, right, below Houston, didn't get neighborhood delivery zones yet. That was one point, did not get. And
Loading zones or delivery?
it's delivery zones.
Delivery zones, okay.
Right.
Okay, neighborhood loading zones.
And then there's specific, we could put more words in later, but specific problems in the Delancey crossing area that have not been resolved for several years.
Essex crossing, yeah.
Delancey and Essex, right? Or just
Essex crossing.
Essex crossing, yeah, the name of the.
Oh my God.
But I would also say like Canal Street and Grand Street as well. It's because I would say that's outside the Essex crossing direct area.
Right.
But can you you mentioned some like cross streets before.
Yeah, I DM them to you, Wendy. You can just copy and paste.
It's just those two, or?
She's Canal. Oh,
I think that those are the main ones around here. I don't know. This is my neighborhood, so that's what I know. I don't know if there are other ones.
hopefully people let us know if there's more.
public transportation section? Or is there more to add there? Okay, so this is, again, an old section.
But still true.
Rodents, next section.
So that's all coming. Carolyn Bragdon, who's the one, our RAP specialist at Department of Health, is sending us, hopefully by the end of the month, the new statistics. They're obviously have gotten really bad again, but she's sending all that to us. Because they, just for FYI, Department of Health does what they call indexing, where they actually look for rodent traces on every lot in a district.
Okay. Sanitation section, move down there. That's new stuff.
It is new. I actually think more should be added. I've just started documenting horrible problems, which I'm even thinking might go in the appendix. What's hard is that we're dealing a year from now, and we have terrible problems now because with the sheds, there's no separation of residential and commercial garbage. I guess the clean curbs, which are in there, will help. They certainly need, more staff, but we'll do that as an expense budget item.
So the environment section, so this section's gone back and forth. We've added back material that kind of had been there, but this is not the version that I sent. So
it came too late.
I understand you had said I should send it by 2:30 and I sent it at 2:15, but that's fine. The sentence of a key finding of their report. Let's lift that sentence and make it a second bullet. One that's in, it's a third line down. It's
key finding, this one.
Right. So that whole thing down to the end of that paragraph would become the second bullet.
After this bullet.
Right.
Okay.
And the whole sentence, a key finding all the way to the end.
Oh, all the way.
All the way.
Yeah, all of this.
Yep. Right. Now, yeah, I'm gonna get rid of it up there. Right. I think it reads better as a bullet. And in here, I think I had stated, right, instead of the Williamsburg Bridge there in the middle, because what we did is we've added a sentence below about those, specifically the 3 bridges, the FDR Drive, and the traffic on them. So the sentence in the middle now kind of has been expanded. So we will not say the Williamsburg Bridge causes these conditions, but we will say something about the transportation infrastructure. So, we've got quite a lot of it. I don't want to call it like a burdensome amount, but the some of the transport infrastructure causes these conditions in CD3.
It's really vague.
CD3, well, it's not that vague, not when you consider that there's going to be the sentence below is still going to be there. Traffic has high counts on all 3 bridges. So change it to say CD3 instead of the Williamsburg Bridge, right there. CD3 has a number, it has several pieces of regional transportation infrastructure. CD3,
we're changing all of
yes.
this whole entire part.
Well, I was in front of the word causes these conditions. Instead of the Williamsburg Bridge, CD3 has a number of regional transportation infrastructure. This seems to be now missing. That causes these conditions in CD3.
Okay.
has a number, but that's a weird phrase. That's fine. We'll clean it up. And then cut out from the comma after with vehicles to the bridge to the end of that sentence. But above, not enough to the end of the line. The sentence ends before the word traffic, after the word Canal Street. A line above, right to that, delete. And change it to a period, and we are done. That's what I had proposed. So yeah, we can remove the word number of, has transportational infrastructure that causes. So a number of can be deleted. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
There, that was what I had proposed that we changed. That was to try to tighten it up and make it a little clearer about environment. Any more discussion of that a little bit? July?
Hi, I have, it's a different subject.
Okay, can we hold it? Because we're almost done with what's here. There's below now, below environment, there's another little sentence about climate change. And so this has additions that were recommended by one of our board members, Yaron Altman, who actually works in the field, environmental engineering, I believe. And so that's what we have added here. I didn't have any problem with it. I would like to, whatever, it's not, it's true. And then noise is the last section here under environment. So that's basically tightening up new statistics and so forth, right?
Right.
All right, July, do you want to go now since we're between sections?
Yes.
Safety.
So 2 items, and I don't know if they fit in within environment or maybe a different committee altogether. The scaffoldings from construction, does that belong to environment within this committee or land use?
What's your discussion of it? Because it's local law 11 related scaffolding. Is that what you're
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And the issue is?
That they're not being removed timely, and they cause problems that overspill into the environment and decreases the quality of life. And then they also create bad smells because, you know, it's attracting people to urinate under them.
So most of it, I mean, we don't have statistics to say they're not being removed timely. It is the law that needs to be changed. A lot of businesses are actually lobbying to have this law changed. And a lot of them are up for safety reasons. So when you start investigating, when people complain, that happened with, at another committee, I think with around Bersetti housing, you know, why they had been up for years. And they had been up for years because there wasn't money to do the repairs needed. So it was a safety issue. I think it's a really important issue. It falls under a lot of categories. Businesses have particularly been concerned about it, but I don't think that's a district needs, unmet needs issue. It is certainly a problem, but it's we need new laws passed, and I think that's pressure on city council.
That's fair. Okay.
I perceive it as primarily it's local law 11 that's causing the situation. Yeah, which is ripe for reform, but I don't think it's a district need thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Public safety. So this section has been modified a bit.
I will say this has been one of the biggest changes in our community. And, you know, certainly complaints, meetings. I've gone to a number of tenant meetings with the police on these issues. We have some specific hotspots. There really are not strategies in existence that are dealing with this. One group I recently suggested they actually write a letter to the mayor and the police commissioner because nothing has helped, but it's, and we have gangs, you know, our gang problem, our gang violence problem is really serious. We've had murders recently.
Right.
I would actually suggest inserting something here. There's been a significant increase in the number of complaints to the community board regarding open drug use, firearms, and other crimes. Firearms in this community, in all of CB3, have skyrocketed over the last 2 years.
Crime has or spotting the
crimes, including the use of firearms.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if that would fit in where we have these crimes are classified as major felonies, and we include some of the major felonies. And this is how this is taken from the police website, actually, from NYPD.
Would there be a way to quantify like the crimes involving guns, and we could stick in a sentence about that if we could pull a number, maybe? Is there a way to?
I haven't seen those stats. Drew, have you seen any stats that show that?
From what I've been looking at, I haven't seen anything specific to firearms, so that's something we can look into. Or if you have an idea of somewhere that you might be able to find that statistic, that would be helpful.
Yeah, it's your area too, Lee.
I spoke to somebody in the ADA's office last week and was able to get a number. I don't remember the number, but I'll look for the contact information and see if I can get that for you.
For Community Board 3 or Lower Manhattan, or give me the contact, whatever you think is best.
And so if we can get that,
maybe add to it. The way we have it now is taken from the way they define it, but maybe you can add a sentence about the firearms.
Want to put it here, like additionally firearm?
say that I would love to see it if it could be pulled that crimes or serious crime involving firearms increased XXX, something like that.
If we can find it, I don't know.
Can find it. If we can't, I don't think we can say use of firearms has skyrocketed unless we can.
I know what I can get. I got from the 9th precinct today. They told me how many they've taken off the street this year, which is, so we could get some kind of stats. It may not necessarily, taking them off the street may not necessarily help as they're replaced, but the number can show the increase.
So, and it's right here, and or number of firearms taken off the street.
Yeah.
And then we'll make a compelling.
Yeah, we can get those from the precinct.
Like that. Okay. I feel like we're almost done. Oh my gosh, it's after 9, y'all. I'm sorry.
And I think we have drug dealing in there because that's a constant complaint already.
Yeah.
Okay. So the things we have here are the things that we want to be including in it. Is there anything in here that someone wants to pull out as a?
Let's go back down to the bottom, and I want to see if this is this all taken care of now?
Yeah, that last bullet point.
Yeah, so we can remove that.
Yeah.
We can just delete that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, is there a section that someone feels the need to have a vote on, because this will go forward as the body? This is the structure.
We're not voting.
I know, but if we're going to, if it's in here now, it's going to continue to be in here. Is there someone who wants to actually say we should not be including something and have the committee vote? Because then we would just remove it and it would not go forward. Just as an amendment. Nope. I see it, July.
David, I actually would like to add 2 items. I don't have any comments on what's already being included. I think we should include everything that's already here. The 2 items are, well, as you know, and a few other board members, the main reason I decided to get on the board is the deteriorating public safety. And I'm, glad to see that the committee, is mentioning it because when I was putting in my application and looking at prior years' district needs statements, the phrase public safety was only mentioned a couple of times, and it was in the context of pedestrian safety, street crossings, traffic. So I currently work and live in the district, and I've now become nervous walking home from work, from Chinatown back to Lower East Side. While I'm waiting for the traffic lights, I don't know if the homeless person is going to approach me and ask for money. And then when I say no, I don't know what they're going to do. They've become very aggressive. And this is, in the summertime, before the sun sets. I no longer go out past, 9:30 or 10 in the summer months. In the winter, that's later, that's earlier. So I don't know how the committee members would feel about, creating safe corridors within the community district, major streets that, can get people from east to west, north to south, where maybe there's better police presence, or usually, brighter lights, heavier foot traffic, and promoting them as safe corridors. I think I would feel much better as a single woman living in the community if we had those. So that's one thing. And I don't just speak for myself. I speak for, my neighbors who are also single women. I work with 50 plus staff members in our Chinatown office. They don't linger after work. They don't perceive Chinatown as safe. So that's one thought. Another thought is, when you dial 911 to report a crime, they ask you to wait at the scene. That is incredibly awkward and not safe. So I don't know if it's appropriate to call it a district need. I think it's a city need. Is there some other way for people to report an unsafe situation or a crime without, remaining on the scene, being exposed to it? And are there, we also need to call for better education on how to report a complaint or, report an unsafe situation. So that I think is a district need. I used to be in the nonprofit world. I worked at Two Bridges Neighborhood Council, and we had one of the affordable buildings in the portfolio, had a drug dealing issue. And the tenants, we would have monthly tenant meetings, and I was representing ownership. So the tenants would come to me, in private and say, we know which floor, which unit is dealing the drugs, but we're too afraid of reporting it. So that's why I'm, calling for, better education. How do people properly, safely make the complaint? I don't think people know.
Right. Well, right. They probably don't. I don't know that there's a district need in here, or actually literally anyway, that the community board could, what we could ask for. There might be, but I don't think it's in the district need. Yeah, I mean, things like 911 asking you to stay on, they certainly don't cease to respond if you say it's just not safe for me to stay here.
You don't have
called 911. You don't have to stay for sure, but maybe that's an educational thing as well. I can see how that might be off-putting to someone. I don't think that one fits in district needs here. And the first one, that's something that never occurred to me. As a man, it's not surprising that it had not occurred to me. Wow, that's an idea, Susan.
Are you talking about homeless people when you say that never occurred to you? Is that what you're referring to?
Me, no, I'm saying what never occurred to my mind was safe corridors. I mean, I think that I do not find the homeless.
So
I do not find the homeless threatening. I think that, but I can see that there are threats, and having safe corridor kind of a program is an interesting thought. Susan?
Well, first, I mean, these are issues that, you know, certainly they're true in that people feel this way. You know, some people feel this way. I'm a vulnerable old female and I don't feel this way, but I know many, many people do. But, and, you know, the safe corridors, something I never heard. Again, it's an interesting issue, but I would suggest that it's an issue that has to be thoughtfully researched. First of all, you want to say, you want to document where there are problems. When it comes to homeless people, the statistics show most crime and violence is done on homeless people, not by homeless people, although I understand people feel very threatened. But I would suggest that if the board wants to investigate that's not something that you would throw in here now, that's something we could carefully research with police, maybe with elected officials. But first you would start with finding statistics on the corridors that you are considering.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's such thing existed, I can imagine that it would be hard to identify.
No, you can find it.
Went. So I'm going to ask Michelle if I think Michelle may have had about a different issue, but if it's about this, you want to jump in, Michelle?
Yeah, well, I was going to say that I would move to strike the section about cyclists being dangerous.
Let's get back to that then. Let's continue talking about.
Okay, well, I would say that the safe corridors idea is offensive, actually. Also to conflate that with the homelessness issue, as Susan said, that most crime is inflicted on people who are homeless. There is a literal murderer running around Manhattan right now, murdering homeless people in parks. So that's not something that we have to deal with if we're housed. I just find it offensive to suggest that someone asking you for money on the corner is in any way dangerous to you. I'll leave it at that. I would not want to include that. And David, if you could come back to me when I ask to strike the other thing, that'd be great. Thank you.
So can I say we deal with strategies to help people not be homeless in human services. There's actually quite a long section on that. You know, the proven way that's most effective right now, the more tool that we have is safe havens. That is what gets people off the street more than any other thing. And, you know, so we've always had a position on supporting that, you know, because you're dealing with an issue, you know, that nobody wants homeless on the street. No, people should not be living on the street.
Right. I'm not hearing wide support for adding something along this line to the district needs. Is there?
I would just add, in terms of thinking of public safety and things that were mentioned, I wonder if you could find, July, if there are places you could identify that aren't well lit within the district. I think that could fall under district needs and feeling safer. I know you mentioned lighting on the way home. I feel like that could be one way to like maybe go about that safety idea and making it safer, for making it so that people feel safer as they're walking home later at night.
Thank you. That I was going to pick up on that. The way that is dealt with is we find those areas and then we ask DOT, they do studies where they actually measure the lighting, and we have been able to get extra lighting in areas that are, you know, people, not that they only feel vulnerable, but where there are crime.
Yeah, we used to do a number of those, and it seems like we addressed the ones that were hotspots, but there certainly could be more.
Oh, we're doing that right now in SDR Park.
Okay. July, your hand's still up?
Oh, that was from before.
Okay. Michelle,
Sorry, I would move to strike the section about cyclists being
Where-
dangerous.
Where is it? I don't know. where it is.
I can't see the whole document. It's farther up, I think.
yeah, we added it in recently.
Up. This right here, the first bullet. I mean, cars are much more of a threat to pedestrians than cyclists. Let's start with enforcing that.
I'm
Please.
still not
It,
seeing.
it is true, but I'm just going to, I mean, I really have evolved on this, right? I'm an avid cyclist. I think that I am responsible for, in some part, for the extensive bike lane network in CV3. But, you know, I almost had a dog killed by a cyclist riding on the sidewalk.
Right, but as you said, David, that the reason why cyclists drive on the sidewalk is because we haven't created the
On
infrastructure to make it
6th
safe.
Street, on 6th Street. No, it's because someone was riding on the sidewalk. I mean, they don't, when rules are not followed, it is a problem and there isn't enforcement.
So then we should put cars in here too, because cars park on the sidewalks, they park in the crosswalks, they go the wrong way, they turn into when you're walking across the street. I mean, come on, it's just not true that cyclists are dangerous to people walking in any way like cars are. I sent Drew 3 articles about it already. It's just not true. It's just not true. So I would like a motion to strike it. If we're not going to vote on it, if we're not going to support it, but I'm going to make a motion to strike it if there's a second for that.
Okay, well, no, I'll take it as a motion. I was just arguing against striking it. Ali.
I'm against striking that. To claim that cyclists, whether on sidewalks or on the road, are not dangerous to pedestrians and at times other cyclists defies reality, defies absolute reality. All one has to do is stand anywhere in CB3 or anywhere else in Manhattan and see cyclists going on sidewalks, going against traffic, running red lights. As a cyclist, as a pedestrian, as a driver, I've seen it and I've also done it. It is a safety hazard, and especially in this community, which is a NORC, most of this community is a NORC, to ignore this fact is silly. No one is saying that cars are not dangerous, but to say that cyclists cannot be, it flies in the face of reality.
I'm sorry, July.
Yeah, I agree with Lee. Michelle, perhaps you don't feel that cyclists are dangerous, but I know many of the senior citizens living in the district, they feel that. And I think, you know, battling the cyclists, looking 360 degrees before you cross, while you're crossing the street, on top of the COVID-19 virus, you know, really decreases their quality of life tremendously.
Are there more discussion of this, or do we want to take a vote on whether, and why don't you go ahead and highlight this one bullet point so people know exactly what we're talking about. So basically raise your hand to vote yes if you want to delete that. If you want Wendy to click delete.
Is discussion over?
No, well, I was going to end it. Go ahead, speak.
I understand the concern. I hear where people are coming from. I've seen cyclists act that way. I don't think we should. I understand this isn't the language, but if we do end up voting to include this sort of language, I don't think we should put it in a way that is blaming the cyclists. You know what I mean? If this is a concern that we agree as a committee is important, it should be centered on the infrastructure. Not vilifying cyclists who I mean, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but we know that yes, maybe there are incidences of cyclists injuring people, but it's a fraction of a percent compared to cars and other. It's that bicyclists are not the problem. It's infrastructure that we need to resolve. I personally am going to move to strike this. I don't see this as a major district need, but that's my opinion if we do end up including it.
So people who want to strike it, July, do you want to speak again?
Yeah, can I, suggest maybe an edit in light of Joshua's comment that infrastructure plays a role in it? So maybe we can incorporate that.
Well, it kind of is already. But no, you can't do that now because we need to vote on whether to delete it. We could then modify afterwards, but we also don't need to drill down to all the details tonight. So does that make sense? The amendment is to delete this. A follow-up thing might be to modify it. All in favor of deleting the highlighted section, raise your hand now. Deleting, I see 1, 2, I'm pretty sure there's a third.
Is Michelle gone again?
Oh no.
I don't know if she's getting kicked out or what.
No, I don't think that's the case. Tariq, your hand is now down.
No, it's up.
It is up? Oh, I got my hand hovering over it. So 2 are wanting to strike it. Okay. Okay, take your hands down. Now, who does not want to strike this section, this language? I can't figure out how to erase mine.
I don't know how to raise mine because I'm screen sharing.
So that would be 4 then. So we're going to leave this. Okay, now any other, so July, what you had suggested was talking about infrastructure. It can't help, but you can't go up First Avenue without a car coming down Avenue against you. I mean, without a bike doing it, which is only a problem when you hit a COVID check.
Yeah, I'm rereading it, and the last sentence, creating more safe spaces for bikes will help with issues that is addressing the infrastructure.
All right. I think we are done unless people have more discussion that they want to do on district needs. Susan's hand is up and so is mine.
Yeah, so this, you voted not to delete it. But what I'm going to say, I think the way it's written can be greatly improved. And, I think there needs to be strategies for better compliance by bicyclists. And, you can't deny that. You can't deny it. But I think what you're doing here is you're blaming the police, which I'm not sure is the strategy. But I'm wondering if it could be kind of reworded.
Well, we could say strategies to increase enforcement, increase compliance with the rules of the road by cyclists is needed. I mean, I would be totally on board with that. Is anyone against doing that? Compliant strategies to increase compliance.
Because, we do want to encourage more bikes and less cars.
Right. And then instead of enforcement of, change that to the word with. Compliance with rules of the road. Yeah, now add the
cyclists and then take out by PD.
Yeah.
And you don't
also is not adequate. Get rid of the next is not adequate.
Yeah. You don't need the pedestrian safety is threatened. I mean, that's I think kind of obvious that's why you need compliance.
David, forgive me for not knowing this, but is this inclusion in the final district needs statement, is that dependent on us coming up with some data? Because right now this is just anecdotal.
Well, right. Yeah, nobody is tracking it. There's no one tracking compliance. What could we come up with?
The police are quoting all the time how many summonses they give.
Right.
So that shows non-compliance.
It does. If it's increased, but it also could show increased enforcement attempts. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, at this point, it kind of is anecdotal, but it is definitely a thing. I can't tell you the number of times that you see the fear in some old woman's face when you're, coming down the road.
Get in the middle of.
You realize she knows that I'm not going to stop when I was actually, and then you end up having a small conversation with them. I mean, it's terrifying to them. That's anecdotal.
I could take photos of people going through the red lights on First and Second Avenue. I have been hit on Houston while crossing Houston. The thing is, we want as much documentation as possible. No, it is not a black and white thing. We all know that, the bicyclists all know that there is a lot of non-compliance. This doesn't mean we're against bikes, and we want more bikes and less cars.
Well, yes.
But I think it's just acknowledging that you need better compliance.
Okay, well, in the moment here, let's add the words after for cyclists. We could say that strategy to increase compliance would improve pedestrian safety. Josh, you are right. We could look for stats on summonses that have been issued. I'm just wondering if the level of enforcement is so low that we would be seeing, what's the cause of the increase if there is one. Anyway.
Well, I'll tell you, there are different kinds of documentation. If you go to any community meeting, and I really encourage people to go to like the police precinct meetings and the build-a-block meetings, not to complain, but to hear what people's concerns are. And you will, it's drug dealing, but you will have, particularly the seniors are scared. They're just scared because when they get the green light, they don't have a clear path. So I think it's just.
I could tell you, Susan, attending every every 7th precinct meeting for the last 2 years, almost every month that has been brought up, especially by seniors, for especially the corridor, the Grand and Clinton corridor, with a 2-way bike lane in front of an apartment complex, which is the north, as well as the rest of the area. Almost every month, those folks bring up issues of concern about bicycle safety and motorized scooter safety.
We could, if people want to, they can add someplace that we want to encourage, for clear pollution, environmental reasons, that we want to encourage more bikes and less cars for environmental and safety reasons.
Are we done here tonight? Is there anything else on this that people want to discuss? Not hearing any. I'm trying to quickly look to the agenda to see if we have covered everything that we are supposed to. We have. So, is there anyone who objects to adjourning? Oh, we need to take the final roll call, but that will adjourn the meeting. We'll do it. Wendy?
David Crane?
Here.
Michelle Cooper-Smith? Michelle? Did she reconnect?
No, she's not here anymore.
Okay. Wendy Lee? Lee Berman?
Yes, and a quick shout out, welcome to July and Joshua.
Thank you.
Tariq Darrell?
Yes, welcome July and Josh.
Kenyel Hernandez? Joshua Waterman?
Yes, and thank you for having me.
July Yang?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you, David.
Thank you all.
Thank you, David.